This is One Sentence News, a daily podcast featuring 3 news stories with a sentence-long summary and 1 sentence of context apiece. I'm Colin Wright. It's Monday, January 10th, 2022. Let's talk about the news. From the Associated Press, Ethiopia grants amnesty to high-profile political detainees. The Ethiopian government has announced it will grant amnesty to some imprisoned opposition leaders and senior Tigrayan officials, an announcement made shortly after Tigrayan separatist forces pulled back to their northern home region. This is notable because the Ethiopian government has been at war with the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front since late 2020, and both sides have at times overwhelmed their opposition, only to fall back or be pushed back a few weeks or months later. This conflict has sparked and worsened numerous humanitarian crises throughout the region, in Ethiopia and neighboring countries, and has resulted in numerous alleged war crimes committed by soldiers on both sides. If the Ethiopian government is serious about wanting to have a dialogue with their opposition and to find some way to end this conflict, as they're now saying, that would likely save a whole lot of lives, even beyond the soldiers who would no longer be shooting at each other. From the New York Times, women's periods may be late after COVID vaccination, study suggests. A new study published in Obstetrics and Gynecology suggests that some women, after receiving COVID-19 vaccines, will experience some kind of change to their menstrual cycle. This study also indicates the changes are generally minor, periods showing up less than a full day late on average, and seem to be transient rather than permanent changes to those cycles. The researchers also said there are a lot of untrue myths being passed around on the internet related to fertility effects, none of which were supported by their research, and that while these small temporary shifts in rhythm might be alarming or annoying to those experiencing them, it's, quote, not going to be harmful in a medical way, end quote. Though they are planning near-future studies to determine whether periods experienced shortly after receiving these vaccinations are heavier or more painful, as some anecdotal data suggests they may be in some cases. And from Reuters, Japan and Australia sign defense pact for closer cooperation. Japanese and Australian prime ministers have signed a reciprocal access agreement which will allow their militaries to work more closely with each other for both defensive and humanitarian purposes. The virtual signing ceremony occurred a day before the U.S. and Japan announced they would be working more closely with each other, militarily and otherwise, to counter growing Chinese power and aggression in the Pacific, and the RAA agreement Japan signed with Australia is part of the same wave of relationship shoring up in this region, as concerns about China making some kind of military move against Taiwan increase, and diplomatic tensions rise between global governments attempting to carve out spheres of influence that are often more than a little uncomfortable for their neighbors. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com, and you can support this and other related projects like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts at understandery.com.